Hey guys, so I know Father Blackwood. No, I'm not going to just talk about him. I was kind of thinking about villains and what makes a good villain. And I was thinking about this because someone left in my last video about with how Black was going to die. About the person said something about like, it's not that saying I don't hate, I'm not saying I hate his character, and that got me thinking. It's like he's a villain, and yet people love his character. Why? So I've thought, let's do a villain discussion. So before we start, who is your favorite villain of TV show, movie, video game, comic, you name it? There's villains galore. So who's your favorite villain and why? So comment that below before we start. And we're going to get into what makes a good villain. And villains are as old as time. There's always been the bad guy. There's always been the hero. There's anti-heroes. Back then, when you think of villains, you think of the, I'm gonna take over the world. And then they're so one-dimensional that you really can't, enjoy the writing of them. When you have a villain who's just like, oh, I'm set on taking over the world, killing people, this and that, for no reason whatsoever, that's not a good villain. If people want to kill others, we want to know the reasons. Like, okay, I think this is from the very first time that they show him, and lighting is everything, music is everything. So when you see him, you first see him, the camera pans into the room, and you see the fireplace, you see the fire going, and you see Hilda, Zelda, Ambrose, and then you see a figure sitting there. You don't know who it is just yet, and then they kind of pan around to reveal it's Father Blackwood. After they say that he's come to visit and to talk to you about your ceremony and this and that. And when they first introduce him, he comes off as very kind. He comes off as very genuine. He comes off as very understanding. Sabrina's saying that, if I sign my book, name in the Book of the Beast, am I having to give up my free will and this and that? And what if I go to the academy? Do I still get to see my friends? And he's doing what he can to reassure her, saying, oh yeah, if you don't like it there, you can leave at any time. But while he's saying this with a smile, the camera angles and the music and certain facial expressions that he makes tell you otherwise. He'll say something and then she'll respond, and then they'll show his face with almost like a scowl starting to form. But just look at this man. That is a handsome man right there. To me, he almost looks like a fusion of Hugh Laurie and Benedict Cumberbatch. When he has his floofy hair, he's like a mixture of Hugh Laurie, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Andy Serkis. But that's a very good-looking man right there. But yeah, in the very first season, the first time you meet him, he comes off as a very noble, well-respected person. People keep talking of the High Priest and how he's like the mouth and the messenger of Lucifer. But as it goes on, you realize he's just a douchebag who's very misogynistic, and he's kind of a villain. Misogynistic, he wants to basically take the coven and make them go back to where men rule. The witches are just beneath them, and men do whatever the hell they want. He's well written, and that's why you hate him, because he is so well written. It's not like, we all know not all men are like this, but the way they make him, where they make him very misogynistic, but then in another scene he might be being compassionate towards someone or something like it's a really well written character. The way he dresses, he's always upstanding, very well spoken, very persuasive, and villains should be like that. And you don't know what his end goal is. We find out that Sabrina's parents killed in a airplane accident, And at first it's like, oh, it just mysteriously happened. But then you find out that he was a protege of Edward Spellman, who was the high priest. What happens when Edward Spellman died? He became the high priest. So he was the one who brought down the plane to kill them because he wanted that power. And that makes you think, what if none of that had happened? What if he was just a regular warlock? He was just part of the staff, but he didn't have that power. He didn't have the position of high priest. Would he still be a douchebag? And that's kind of makes you wonder. That's how well these characters are written. Like, you think about, what if this didn't happen? Another great character, and one of the people that most people think off the top of their heads, Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. Amazing character. You know, as he would put it, he hides, you know, in plain sight. He owns several restaurants. He's kind. He's generous. He treats everyone with respect. He's very active in his community. But then on the underside, he's actually a freaking drug lord. But you would never know that by the way he presents himself. He's so well spoken and so lively, and then you see him just completely switch to very cold and calculating and ruthless, and it's just a great character. People like Lucius Malfoy from Harry Potter, another great, well-written villain. Voldemort is kind of really well written, but he doesn't really have moments where he's pretty much just one-sided. He wants to kill everything. He wants to bring about another war and this and that. He wants to kill Harry Potter and this. But you have Lucius Malfoy, who, you know, he's a father. He's very powerful. He's very rich. He's a servant to Voldemort. But, like, if it was in a real universe, and you ask Draco, what are the best memories you have of your father? I guarantee you, it would be actual genuine moments of bonding with his child. Because he doesn't always come across like a douchebag. I'm sure he does when we see him. But a lot of the time when he's around Voldemort, he's very scared. He's vulnerable. He shows almost what he truly is. This whole, you know, I'm superior is just a bravado, a facade to make it appear that he's better than everyone else, because he thinks he's somewhat better than everyone else because of being pureblood. But when he's around Voldemort, he shows what he kind of really is. So this whole snarkiness, but he's also well written. Same thing. If he was so bad, he would not be married with a, you know, have a wife and a child, because Narcissa, very strong, very powerful, very independent female, she could easily whoop his ass. So she doesn't have to be married to him if he was so fucking abusive and actually being a douchebag all the time. She could easily handle him. And if not, Bellatrix would handle it. Because, yeah. So, he's also very well written villain, where you see his vulnerabilities. Same thing with Blackwood. Same thing with Fring. Because with Fring, they show some flashbacks of when his partner died, and they showed him in a vulnerable state. He was on the ground, you know, crying and all that. And it's almost like, well, he's felt that before, and he doesn't want to go through that whole vulnerability and something like that again. So, well-written characters, villains, comprise of a lot of things. Like I said, the writer themselves have to have a clear vision of the villain in their head. What are their goals? What was their purpose of starting all this? What's their end game? Do they complete it in a month? Is it several years that it takes? Is it if it's a show, is it going to be a season? Is it going to take several seasons? Because we got three, almost four. It's going to be four soon of Sabrina, and he's been a thorn in everyone's side since the fucking beginning. So he's a consistent villain. Gus, same thing. When Gus was introduced, he was a thorn in everyone's side until the very end that he was killed. Lucius kind of ran off, and I can't remember. Let me know. Was he sent to Azkaban, or did he just kind of flee? And I don't remember if he was sent to Azkaban or not. I haven't read the fucking books in ages. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of well-written characters, and like I said, the writing is one. The music when they're introduced or when they're around, um, villains will tend to get more or less maybe deeper, more drawn out chords or keys or whatever the case may be, on the violin or so music is very effective. Now, if there's no music, sometimes that can make you wonder what their motive is, but no music usually works in scary movies. They're walking around something and it's going back and forth, and there's no music. That tends to be more effective. But with a villain, the music is everything. You want to know. You can tell sometimes what they're feeling just by that music. So there's, and I mean I could go on for several. I mean it's already been 11 minutes, so I don't want to go on too long about villains. Like I said, heroes they're too easy to talk about. I fight for what's right. Oh boy, that's easy. Why do you fight for what's right? Because it's the right thing to do. Now the villain, it's like, I want to take over the world. Well, why do you want to do that? And then they have this long, complex backstory of what happened to them in their life and this and that. So the villains are just more fun. But I'm sorry. I keep looking at him. I'm like, that's a handsome man right there. It's like, oh, I wish he would look at me like that. No, but I love the way they dress him. Very, very elegant, very well spoken. He's got his hair slicked back. He's got his cane, which I never noticed it was a rabbit. He's got his long nails. But yeah, so many ways to mess up a villain that I'm glad that the shows that I watch have villains that are well written. Like I said, let me know what your favorite villain is. Like I said, it could be anything: movie, book, video game, comic, TV show. Doesn't matter. It's a villain, then you can write it. Where are they and why? What makes you drawn to that villain? But yeah, that'll be it for me. Thumbs up, thumbs down, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.